All right, well, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Pollack for inviting me to present here, of course, at the conference. Physics and chemistry, of course, biology, water, and Maya too, and Anton, and the whole group, and all of you that are here. Certainly appreciate getting a chance. I'm in the soft science side of things. I'm a veterinarian, if you will. And just I want to also thank Ray Stewart, who was a fellow that got me started in induction into electrolyzed water using chiropractor. And to all my colleagues and staff and owners that helped and cared and did the observations of all the patients, and to my family, especially my wife, who I've known, she'd love to be here too. So she'd love to meet all of you. Of course, I have to be, as a practitioner, I have to declare and give my declarations and my conflicts of interest. Of course, what I am presenting here is not meant to provide recommendations for the diagnostics or treatment of animals or people. I'm going to do that, okay? And I work, of course, with the Department of Homeland Security and the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, and I'm not representing them here today, nor am I representing the University of Georgia and College of Public Health, or the Regional Institute of Veterinary Emergencies, or Hyperbaric Veterinary Medicine, or Oconee County, where I'm a firefighter. And I am a distributor for electrolyzers. The other one type is ionizer by an adjunct. And then, of course, I'm a needer person of reasons that I need water, as we all do, with that great cumulus cloud there that weighs so much of the mount. I was a working cowboy, so I had a horse that needed water. And I really cried for water. There's a song about that, you know. And of course, there's water. If you're ever out in Nevada, there's wild horses, and these are some little horses that are just, I imagine, screaming out for water. They don't know inside them, though. They have easy water. They'll take care of them. I'm a working firefighter, so there are times when I'm out there and I'm fighting fire. That's me. That's underneath the little sign that says water, and that's me after the fire's over, and I have a glass of or a bottle of water in my hand. And as you know, there's so many things that are problems with bottled water. They even have chemicals in them that shouldn't be there from the plastics. They also are a pH of around 5.5. They're literally a dead water. There's hardly anything in them. They don't resonate at all. But anyway, we continue to use it because that's all we have. Fortunately, now there are some companies that are putting out at least alkaline pH water. I haven't tested the resonance of the water, but it looks promising. Of course, I'm a medic, so in driving an ambulance, I'll try for water. When I'm at a scene, I'm going to try for water. The only other thing we want to try for is oxygenation. So it's either vascular volume or oxygenation when I'm treating a medical patient. And then even at a car wreck, of course, everybody's trying to get some water. So, I just have to say this, though. I know we've heard a lot of very good, brilliant things about the science of chemistries and so things. But just to say, isn't this all too awesome to be by chance? To be just evolved? Isn't there a God that's an amazing engineer? You think about it? That cumulus cloud we're talking about weighs 1 billion kilograms. How does that happen? Or if you took the water, which is on the surface of the earth, 71% Earth's surface of water, 69% of it is all fresh waters and ice, and melting the ice all over the globe would essentially cover the entire globe 2.7 kilometers higher than the surface is now. And in Genesis, of course, we go back to that book, which is Genesis 1:3, let there be light. And I asked the Hebrew fellow that he'd asked his rabbi what the word light means, and it means all the electromagnetic spectrum. It's not just physical light. And of course, the waters on the earth were there first, of course, in the sky, and the earth and the plants. And then, of course, animals. And that was the 5th and 6th day. And God, of course, had to rest on the 7th day after he made us. I can see why. All right, so then we go to this. I'm a veterinary surgeon by training, and I always say, what can I do to improve outcome? And I came across that in post-operative recovery that hydration is one of the most important things that are important. And there's been some physicians that Medicaid guy said this in the body price for water in '92, and saying how Wayne said reversing aging in his book, and alkaline water has been coming out and further out, and of course it's a scavenger, and it's a scavenger of reactive oxidant species, which we're all making. So, there's a guy recently said hydration and disease in American College of Nutrition, that dehydration is linked to so many vascular diseases, arthrosclerosis, hypertension, myocardial infarction, renal cystic fibrosis, stroke, hydration, and of course these can be reversible changes if we all stay hydrated with appropriate water. The objectives of this presentation then are to look at electrolyzed, ionized water as a process, to look at the ionizer itself that I've been using, just real briefly. It's an overview of electrolyzed water characteristics, some of those that have been worked in the past and published. Some of the researchers in this audience are here, and they've actually helped me a lot already, and that's a blessing. The veterinary medical observations that I did were in 6 veterinary hospitals, and they were involving 2 kinds of water that became electrolyzed. Either acid water, which is a low pH, and we use that topically for wounds, and we also use it in the area of sterilization, in disinfection. And we also use alkaline water as a high pH, and it's water for ingestion, and we also use the very high pH for topical use. Well, that's what is the definition of electrolysis in water. It's a process in which electrical current passes through the water. Single negatively charged free electrons then are added to the water at a positive cathode, and it's reduction, and it's a side of the semi-permeable membranes. While the free electrons then are removed from the water at the negative anode. I'm sure we've all seen that in high school as well as many of you as researchers. I very feel honored here that I'm even talking a little bit about chemistry, and I know hardly anything like you guys do. Here's just a summary then of water electrolysis in a chemical equation format. As you notice that hydrogen is produced as a gas, and there's free hydrogen. And that gas is actually small little tiny bubbles that are throughout the water, and you can literally see this as you generate the water. And it's a very low oxidative reduction potential. It's over a -500 is the average. Now we were measuring that with a oxidative reduction potential monitor, and so that machine was letting us do that. And then, of course, on the anode side, we have the high oxygen gas is produced, and we see, of course, it's an acid, and of course, it is taking away those electrons. And so the electrons are donated into the water at the cathode side, and of course, they're removed on the anode side. And those electrons are going to be important as we see going on here. Notice there's a small amount of just a kind of a picture just with a regular camera just showing all the bubbles. As you can imagine, see in the back of the room that shows how far right. The tiny little bubbles, and if you take a lighter and you light them as they come off of a machine, you actually pop, so they're exploding. Water electrolysis then that we're using at home, in industry and medical uses, there are many different kinds. Then of course they generate both these types of electrolyzed water. The ionizers that we use with the SD501 from Osaka, Japan, it generates by passing 220 watts of power with 60 cycle alternating current, and it goes through 7 by 5 inch platinum coated titanium electrodes. And they've been ameliorated together in a really format so that there's no the titanium comes through. It's all platinum that comes through. There is the nano platinum that is produced, of course. And it's filtered first. And it's important to recognize that the filtration is very, very important. If you don't have filtered water that's very quality water going in, you may be ionizing things you don't want to. So we have this room 6 in one of our rooms that we call functionally the watering hole. That's where we have the ionizer, and we have that machine, and it's just it has of course you just press the button, it turns it on, it says Kangen water, and it takes what pH you want, and then of course the water comes flowing down out of its major source here, and so this is where the alkaline waters are going to be, and the acid waters are at the bottom on the other side. And there's just one of the patients coming in, and you'll notice he's pretty happy, that fellow there, because his dog is starting to walk, and then he's been drinking the water, and he notices the water tastes different. It's like you're walking through an area where there are hardly any type of impediments. So the water seems to not be impeded going into your circulation. It's like, did I really drink that water? It's like it's fairly light water, it's called. So let's just look at this water, electrolyzed, reduced water, and oxidized water compared to tap water. So as tap water, as you can imagine, there's tap water. It has a pH of 5.5, and if you look at reverse osmosis water, it's not any better than as far as the pH. And that again means it's going to take and rob basically electrons, because it's going to be an acid material going into your body. And we know we don't want to do that. Of course, my pets certainly didn't want to do that, but they had no choice. One thing about using all this in the pet animals and farm animals and horses and so, there are no placebo effects. So this is really important as we notice what we're going to see here. And of course, we do get some dysresonance, if you will, at 128. This water dysresonates. It doesn't resonate at all. Whereas this water resonates very solidly. And of course, at 42 hertz, it changes its frequency. The frequency is changed by putting it into the water. On the oxygen side, on tap water, we see it dissolved at about 10 parts per million. And if it's electrolyzed, it's at 228 parts. And therefore, it's very low in oxygen compared to regular water. And certainly on the other side, on the oxidized side, it's tremendously involved with a lot of oxygen as well as dissolved. And dissolved hydrogen is about 2.3 parts per billion, whereas here, look at the difference, and this is 690 parts per billion. And over here on the oxidized side, this is still, if you use the higher pH, 11.5, you'll get up to roughly 1,600 parts per billion of dissolved oxygen, of hydrogen. And then the ORP is a minus, in this state, it's electrolyzed, it's reduced, is a minus, up to minus 850 we've measured, as well as, and the tap water is a positive 650. So it is definitely very acidotic. It's very acidotic, it's also very oxidizing. All right, and then of course, when we look at the cluster size, this is something that is very hard, I guess, to measure, but this is what I've seen written in the textbooks and so forth, so I'm just going with that. That's not something we've measured. Chlorine, of course, and fluoride are a lot in tap water these days. And we know that if you take chlorine and you just add a little bit of protein to it, like in the mucous membranes of your mouth, it turns to trichloromethane. Right? It doesn't even sound good. All right? What it actually produces is chloroform. And then it's cancer causing. So we do, as I bring to this audience, it's probably a good thing for us to look at, besides putting chlorine in tap water. And there's no chlorine in the electrolyzed water because it's taken out with the filters. There's still some fluoride in the filters that we're using. And the inorganic, it's the same thing with the oxidized side of the electrolyzed water. And if there's inorganic and organic, certainly compounds, and these are in tap water. This includes, as we probably saw in the film, we know that there's a lot of things going on in that tap water that we don't like much to think about, like chemotherapy drugs that are in there. And there's certainly calcium and magnesium, and that's what actually powers into the electrolyzers. You know you can't electrolyze water unless there are materials in there in ionized form. Ionized it should essentially like calcium and magnesium. And of course we use these different amounts of the different sizes or pHs that we can get with a consumption of about 20 mils per kilo per day. In time plus 70, you get the amount of that the animal needs to drink. And then they drink the water, and probably because of due to nanoparticle platinum, there is some stability within the system as well. And I just bring out one of my friends who I've got to know here, Dr. Shirahata, who's done the work and has published a great deal in electrolyzed water, and I honor him very much. I'm glad he shared me some of his work. So electrolyzed reduced water supplemented with platinum nanoparticles suppresses the promotion of two-stage cell transmission of cancer cells. And that's important for us to understand and keep on moving on. And so if the topical we use at 11.5, if it soaks into the tissues, and so it's an antioxidant soaking in the tissues, we see this visibly, and we just bring out maybe it's the aquaporin system, because if the water has truly been in a hexagonal structure, it's going to fit on the top of the aquaporin much easier, sit into that tissue, run and into that cell, and run into that cell, which would be easier with energy phase of needing it. So we see leg edema go down, facial edema, from blood trauma and so forth go down from the inside, and antioxidant effects as well. So, and again, work that Dr. Shirahata did with electrolyzed reduced water, it found that it's the hydrogen scavenged the reactive oxidant species along with small amounts of platinum nanoparticles. And of course, this really helped potentially new oxidized antioxidant effects against carcinogenesis. So everything that I was reading as a veterinarian, I was saying, this is exciting me a whole lot. And I completely scavenged the amount of xanthine, the hypoxanthine oxidase system with SOD-like activity. If we can generate SOD-like activity, you've got me. I want to keep on getting that. So, and my animal patients will want the same. And we'll just keep on going because of the time. I'm just going to say there's so much been written about it, but it's looking at using the water has been also shown to be safe. There's a structure, one study done that showed that drinking 1/3 of an ounce of alkaline water that should be I got that wrong. It's drinking that amount is certainly real easy to have, but there's more than that. Our animals are drinking up to 12 to 15 gallons. In one cow study, I'll just mention that, we don't have time to go through all the studies, but one cattle study in Japan, there were 23 dairy industries. The dairy farms mentioned, first of all, that the cattle seemed to be more healthy, they were more gentle, they had higher milk production, an average of 20 to 30%. That is a lot when going from tap water to alkaline water. And also their bone structure was better, again, probably, and they stopped using even some of the mineral blocks that were used to provide the minerals for them because then their bone density structure was improved. And there were less mastitis, less infection rates, and so forth. Well, looking then at pet animals a little bit too, as well, the pet and the human are safe in a lot of ways. Certainly the mitochondria, they don't do well without enough oxygen, and so we always have oxygen radical species that are produced. Just imagine though, there's 10 trillion cells, 1 trillion cells per kilogram of body weight per animal, and they're metabolically more active than we are in terms of pets. And there's 1 million molecular changes that occur in that cell every second. You hear that? Every cell, 1 million molecular changes. And if you've got 1 trillion cells and you're only a 1 kilogram dog, that's a lot. And the oxygen, of course, is the driving as well as the water. The water and oxygen are driving it, and the lack of water and lack of oxygen we know that are important to provide acidosis and inflammation and cancer. Dehydration is probably one of the most important things I see as a veterinarian, and I wanted to help kind of prove that by just having the animals start to drink the water. When we place the water even down on the ground, we have 2 bowls of water. One bowl has got tap water in it, and the other is the electrolyzed reduced water. The dog or the cat, cats are a little bit they're almost like a queen. They think they're something. So if they look at something and say, just put something new down, and they get a chance to even feel the vibration I feel, they go to that water and only drink that water. The same thing with the dog. You won't drink regular tap water. In fact, they'll stop and wait for you to come home with the electrolyzed water if that's what you have. And even to the point of maybe they get dehydrated, so that we don't want to leave them alone without that water. So the pet has a metabolism about 7 to 10 times faster. They're sentinels for human disease. They are our sentinel. And if we see our animals that have, imagine that, 6 times more mammary cancer in dogs than there are in female women, 6 times more. There's something wrong with our environment, of course. And if we can just change that by looking translationally at medicine, working with research in animals that will help us, because these are spontaneous diseases. And I'm trying to wake up our physician colleagues to be able to help do that. And it's hard, by the way, when they look at something like that. So again, 6 times more in many different kinds of cancers, not just mammary cancer. Let's see, I've lost that. It's not firing. And if you look at, this is, I hope this shows up. I don't know if it will. Let's see if I can move it around from the fire. Oh. Nope, I guess not. All right, well that was supposed to show you the magnificence of the blood formation, of course, in membranes and how fast they move. And now we'll just move on to our pets and owners. We did 6 practices, but again, this is over about 2.5 years. And we had 300 dogs and cats. And we lost a lot of them in follow-up, so we had really basically 100 that we could really look at pretty carefully, as well as most of the people and 10 cats that would want to contribute to our system. This is an electrolyzed water going into this patient. He's already been hydrated. We notice a difference when we use other kinds of modalities. Now, this modality here is a targeted pulse electromagnetic field. It's one of these. And I'm going to pass it around just so you all have a chance to look at it at least. And I'm going to put a signal, and I'm going to turn this device on. And it just has 2 little batteries in it. And I'm going to use a biotensor, the demonstration here. And this is a tensor to just look at very subtle energy fields. And I'm going to turn this very subtle energy field. It's only 1,000th of the power of yourself. And I'm going to turn, I'm holding this still. And there's the field. It's kind of moving back. It's moving. Then I'll turn it back and there it goes away. Now it's moving and pushing the tensor, then it goes away. And there's the tensor going this in other words, there's no resonation. Now there's resonation. Resonation. It's a very subtle energy field. Again, 1,000th of power itself. And it's powered by 2 little batteries. And it has been FDA approved for Medicare and Medicaid in the United States pay for it, for pain and swelling anywhere in the body. As a medic, I've had it on patients with heart pain, and they've turned out to be myocardial infarction patients. The research shows that myocardial infarctions are much less if we get one of these devices on, and this is in laboratories, animals, but now it's just starting to see it in humans. We're using it, of course, post-operatively in people, as well as our animals. And here I have a little dog who's, she's really cute, isn't she? And imagine the dynamics of what's it called, quantum, between these 2 interchanging with each other. They're like one. And we see that in veterinary practices all the time. How many of this would have animals? Pets of any kind. It's just amazing how they can, thank you. You can see, and I imagine you can talk about how they make you feel. It's unconditional love that they give you to you as well. And so here's this dog who's getting, she had a knee problem, and she's getting a targeted pulse electromagnetic field. And when we notice when we resonate her, that if she is hydrated, she's going to take the signal in much better than otherwise she would. And how do we tell dehydration? You know, you just can't tell them just by one of the saddest things in medicine happened when there was some research where somebody said, it's only when you're thirsty that you need to drink. And that's one of the most important things that is not correct. And we find this in animals is that we think they're maintaining most dehydrated if they are on tap water because of the chlorine. We think they can smell it. Okay. So at the Institute of Emergencies and Referrals, we care for a lot of sick animals, and we of course are utilizing some of the data that utilizing even oxidized water to help kill, of course, organisms. Even on the surgical floor, our operating room area, we're using it, of course, for sterility and surgical scrubs, and using it for rinsing the bad wounds, and we just use it a lot. Now here's one of our patients. This is an 18-year-old cat who was chronically receiving 2 to 3 times per week subcutaneous fluids to maintain her renal function, and she began eating well and began feeling better. And she said the ownership started playing on day 2 after she started drinking the electrolyzed reduced water. We observed that we decreased her BMN and her creatinine, her functional kidney values went to normal. She stopped the subcutaneous fluids. She lived another 1.5 years. At the age of 20 years old, she went on to be in heaven with her owner, I'm sure. And her owner, of course, stated that her electrolyzed reduced water was just amazing for her, and our milk for him, for Milton. And then we see all the chronic diseases, chronic liver disease, mammary gland, prostate, degenerative joint, asthma. these are conditions we've clinically proven that the electrolyzed water reduces their incidence of their asthma attacks, helps in heart disease, essentially you can imagine with blood flow being better. Autoimmune phenomena with hemolytic anemia is a very inflammatory crisis, thrombocytopenia, degenerative disc disease. And this here is, we use it hit by cars, snake bites, bite wounds, burn wounds, we use it in joint surgery, post-operatively. Every patient that I would try to get the owners to agree that start them on electrolyzed reduced water, we do. And then, of course, right after surgery, we started. So here's Sampson. He's 11 years old. He started limping at April 2012. By the time he was August 2012, we had a very happy owner because she'd been using the water for several months now, and she noticed a significant difference in this dog's happiness. This is a happy dog. Can you see that? Maybe you can't. But most dogs, they can be glum, especially if they have a carcinoma, a bone tumor that's very painful. And the main pain relief he was getting was with the electrolyzed reduced water. And of course, any of the compounds he was getting will also help be driven to that area where his pain is. So the average dog lives for 6 months with osteosarcoma with his leg removed. This dog had his leg still ongoing, and you can imagine, you see, from April of one year to July the next year, and then he's finally euthanized because it got large enough. It slowly grew, much slower than it would otherwise. And here's Sampson. He's a 5-year-old obese little corgi, and he became paralyzed. He has a ruptured disc right here, and he has a CT image. It shows the disc is pushed up. Here's his cord up here. This is his disc pushed here, and so we did a hemilaminectomy. This is a model to show you what kind of surgery that is. And this is him post-operatively. This is here. He noticed, and then here he's going into the back home, and here's several gallons of electrolyzed reduced water. We tell them not to because of the perturbation that can occur with the tickling of the water. You can see the oxidative reduction potential with the ORP meter drop significantly. So we say drive slowly and get the stuff into the refrigerator as soon as you get home. And of course, if they can also gently buy that little machine, they're not cheap. They're about $3,900 for that little machine, but it's very, very, very powerful. And we have a lot of owners that do go on and get that machine. Here's a happy surgeon because I had another dog that he went on to complete recovery. This is a spinal cord rupture, spinal cord compression. It's within the spinal cord itself. It's not like a disc like we often have in humans where it's down in the sciatic area. The entire family, including the children and grandchildren, everybody's drinking the water now. Here's Maggie. She was found in a trash dump. She was approximately 10 days old. She was brought in very weak and dehydrated and starving, literally. And she had a severe eye infection and conjunctivitis and so forth. And we used the oxidized water. She had an IO catheter placed in her bone. And we started on IV fluids right away. And then we had the electrolyzed reduced water we started using. And we soaked her eye first with oxidized water to help kill all the bacteria. And then, of course, we then on to use the electrolyzed reduced water to take the swelling out. And then she was on the electrolyzed reduced water here's Maggie, and here's Brian, and literally the joy and happiness that occurs. And she had a supraorbital cyst that occurred. She is now continuing to be observed when she's being applied at 11.5 as an anti-inflammatory topically, and then she's drinking the 9.5. Okay, here's Sampson out of Franklin. You can see how the owners really love to take the water home, and they're not just taking it home for the dog. I'm sure they're not. And this is where they're going on home. Dental and oral cavity disease, you see virtually this. You put the 2.5 on to clean the teeth, and then you use that for any infections that may occur. And that's really, and oral infections just go away. And then we see the cats as well as the dogs on 11 or 9.5 or 9 water. And we have very, very big problems with obesity in animal patients, just like we do with people. And we see the loss of weight if indeed they stay on their electrolyzed water. And again, here's a cardiovascular thoracic surgeon. inspired now. Horst Felter and I have been working with using it in burns and also all kinds of wounds, the electrolyzed, oxidized water. I'm sorry, I wish I had a little quick picture. There you go. You don't see it very fast. All right. But then we say all severe wounds that are going back, in the operating room, we fix them. We electrolyze oxidized water from the wounds. It cleans, it destroys all bacteria, including the severe ones that are like staph infections and so forth. We irrigate with it as well as we use it circulating post-operatively. When we have a really acute like staph pyoderma infection in the skin, we go ahead and apply immediately the 2.5 and then apply the 11.5 on the anti-inflammatory side. We use it, if they're sick enough, we put it in a tube down their nose so that we're adding glucose and glutamine and the 9.5 because they've got some added metabolic acidosis. And research has shown that metabolic acidosis is really very significantly treated well utilizing electrolyzed reduced water. And there's a lot of things that happen. These animals love the water. Can you tell that little good dog loves the water? And of course, we use it in head injury along with, this is a little dog that survived very severe head injury and she's doing well. The post-op performance of these animals, and we use it in hyperbaric oxygen. We use it in patients that are going in the chamber. We know that they're going to have easy water treatment. Dr. Pollack, he told me that when he puts water inside a chamber, it makes easy water. So we use a lot of hyperbaric oxygen in practice. And you can imagine these two guys are taking a ride in the hyperbaric chamber. And in summary, all right, so we have many pets who've noted to improve notably by their owners and by their veterinarian at 85%. We had especially those diseases that were really easily observed and seen differences, like joint disease, where they're walking better. Or some animals are running where they weren't running before. Just last week I had a patient owner say, he's never run before. And she's a great Pyrenees, about that's tall. All right, and we see asthma, dermatitis, neoplasia is slowed down, and we have seen that. We see effective resuscitation because they have free electrons now that are going into tissues to donate the hydrogen and donate those electrons into tissues to be a powerful antioxidant. And because pets have a faster metabolic life, I think they should be again continue to be used as a sentinel to see how these can be helped. And our translational and our physicians should start utilizing this technology as well. And these are my two grandsons. Both of them want to be firemen at this point. Right? And I really have, thank you so much for having a chance to talk to you. Sorry. If you are in a building, anything higher than 2 stories, always carry a plastic bag with you. If you smell smoke, and don't open your door to your room in your hotel. Get down first on the floor. Take your plastic bag that you carry with you wherever you go. It's got clean air here. You're getting down. You're going to get out. You want to get out. Get out of there, but you've got clean air in here. At least 10 minutes worth. Otherwise, you'll go out into that building area where there's so much smoke and carbon monoxide and carbon cyanide, it'll kill you. I know. I carry people out because I'm going in with a mask. Please, just start taking the plastic bag. Something clear, by the way. Not very dark. Okay.